I decided to start the recording early, just in case a question that you have may, and the answer I give may benefit somebody who's not here. Uh, I know one person wrote me. It's not necessary to write me if you're not going to be here, but uh, one person's off getting their vaccine in Tustin, so wanted me to be sure to record so she could see this tonight. So okay, I got it done. Anybody with a question? Oh, we're getting there. Vanessa, I for some reason can't mute you. Could you do it for yourself? Thank you. Oh, we got two Vanessas. I'm sorry. I meant Batista. Well, if the person's actually not there and just a black screen, there's not going to be any noise at all. Okay, come on. Give me a question. Are you ready for Thursday?
No. I was gonna ask you, are there any tricks you can tell us to help us? I mean, I've been studying for like weeks, it feels like, and I'm still struggling.
Yeah,
Uh,
but what are you studying? You should be studying first uh, the muscles of the cat and the human.
yeah,
Look and be able to identify them. And then you can put that aside and it's all memory work, order, insertion, and action. Now
yes,
that's
the
what,
actions I'm having trouble with.
well, when you take my class face to face, you have to write it out yourself. You have to write the action out. There's good and bad, but uh, more good, I think, in your case, your class's case, because you're going to have like five multiple choice questions, uh, answers. And by reading those answers uh, and thinking about what they're saying, then if it says it's flexing the forearm, well, is that what that muscle does? You can work it out on yourself if you want to. You can probably do it from memory better. When there's five answers to choose from, one of them's going to be dead on, and four of them are going to be crappy. So
Okay.
uh, it really comes down. That's not the only part of the test, but that is the major part of the test. Enough of the test, in fact, that you could, score an extremely high grade. Uh, you need to take a look at the pictures of the three types of muscle again. Okay, those are all actually in the lecture note. I believe that's where they are. But I've shown them to you: the cardiac muscle, smooth muscle, skeletal muscle, and be able to say which one is which. Well, nobody ever misses those questions. Okay, uh, I think the big difference between the test on Thursday and the two practice tests that I've given you Now, you may not have taken the second practice test, and we might go through it together in just a moment. The first practice test pointed to a muscle and asked you to name it, and that is all. That's the easiest part. It really, I think, is the easiest part. But it's the most important part because if you can't name the muscle, you are going to be guessing at anything else. But that first practice test only asked you to name. Now, the second practice test, which was posted yesterday, and you may not have had time to do it, but this is a great time to do it 2 days before, uh, points to a muscle and it might say name it. The next question is the same image, the same model, but it says instead, what is the action of this muscle? Okay. And then it may even go on to say what is the insertion or origin of the muscle. Don't usually dwell on a muscle for 4 points for 4 questions, uh, but you can expect all of those types of questions: name, origin, insertion, and action to be on the test. More naming than anything else. Then more actions than the remaining, and then more origin and a few insertions. Uh, that would be a guide if I were desperate and hadn't been studying yet as to where I could accumulate probably the most points. But if I have been studying, I've already been studying, and I already know the names, well, then really get in there, get those actions down. I know you say that they're tough, but uh, sometimes it's only because maybe the wording is a little bit different. In other words, flex the wrist versus move the wrist. We won't have any move the wrist because move is not an anatomical term. Okay, it's a physiological term. We would have adduct or abduct the wrist the way it says on the study guide. By all means, use the shortened, abbreviated study guide. Okay, does everybody know where to get it?
Yeah.
Uh, you may feel, on the other hand, some people do, that they're shortchanging themselves if they want to learn more of it, and they want to learn it more completely. Well, of course, the longer lists are there for you. And the longer lists are only longer in the origin and insertion because the action and the name are the same. Okay? Unfortunately, the truth is that you learn the longer list, you just forget more. Okay, I mean, by the time it comes around that you would ever in your career have to use this, you're probably going to have to learn it again. You think you're going to retain it all for years? No, we're not. Okay, this is a proving ground, actually. That's how many people view anatomy. I view it not only that, some concept, but also vocabulary. Vocabulary. Okay. Other than that, I believe that pretty well on it covers practicum too. Now, why people say it's so hard? It's not hard to understand what's going to be on it. The only hard part is getting that in your head so that you can answer quickly. There are going to be only 70 minutes for the practicum. 70 minutes is plenty of time. How much time do people get when they take the class face to face? Well, when they take the class face to face, they get 80 minutes. Oh, well, they get 10 extra minutes than you. Yeah, 10 minutes extra to write everything out, to go around a classroom, wait for a student to get out of the spot that you need, sit down, reposition the cat or the model, and then go ahead and write your answer, and then get up and move and move and move 30 times until you've seen it all. That takes more than 10 minutes. Takes more than 10 minutes. So don't be concerned about the 70-minute time. Uh, like you have to keep the time a little bit on the well, actually, I'm not really keeping it on the low side here, but I can't have it on the high side. I can't give 2 hours or something like that because unfortunately somebody will just pull out their sheet and read the answers to themselves and take it and put it on the test. And to avoid that and to avoid using proctorio, which I will do my absolute best to keep us away from. Okay. Uh, well, then we have to have time for the answers only, not time to look them up. Okay. That sometimes sounds harsh to some students who think, oh, I think they cheat or something like that. Well, uh, I'm not talking about you individually. Some students, unfortunately, do take advantage. Okay, uh, your turn. Butt in. Okay, okay. Let's get a shared screen here. We're all the way up to the start of week 9, or the second 8-week period for 8-week classes. I want to go through a couple of things here with you. First off, there is a discussion. It's on the heart. It's on heart chemistry. Uh, I have given you plenty of time to complete this because I don't want it interfering with your studying. So I've given it to March 29th to put your 2 cents worth into this question on cholesterol. The assignment is nervous tissue, chapter 12, and the due date is also March 29th. So you don't need to worry about this before the test. When do you worry about it? Gee, I put it right in the middle of your spring break. Where are you going? Anywhere? Are you going to still be in that room typing away, Facebooking or Instagramming or whatever we do? Each of us has our own preference. Uh, well, I don't mind putting it there uh, because the chapter assignment on nervous tissue, it's the entire chapter. It's not that long, and you've got a week and a half really to get that accomplished. Now, the assignments, the outlines, the suggested due date is March 29th. The actual due date that makes it count for extra credit on the practicum is anytime before the practicum coming up. Okay. So if you have not finished chapters 23 and 24, that's the only two you have to get in. If you have not finished them by Thursday, you have to make a decision. Is it worth your time to finish them now and take away time from studying? Especially when I've given you 3 weeks for those two chapters. So you're probably not anxious to, somebody's probably not anxious to do them. Watch my vocabulary too. Uh, or get them in if they're almost done. Get them in today. Get them in tomorrow. Get them in Thursday morning before the test And if you have any extra credit from the extra credit muscle test that we took last week, you'll get that. There are other people who will say, but I didn't get any extra credit on that test because I didn't take it, or I only got 1 point. Well, definitely those people, they need to be studying their origins, insertions, and functions instead of finishing the study guide, because the study guide can only net you 5 points of extra credit. There are about 3 people who are going to get the 5 points of extra credit because they got all 10 of the questions right. For those of you who may have gotten an odd number of questions right, I don't think I said this to everybody. Say you got 5 questions right. Well, 5 questions, 2 questions equal 1 point. 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. I'll round up to 3. I'll always round up. Okay. And I'll put that in. Please do not look to Canvas to put it in for you. Canvas doesn't know how to do that. Okay, so you have a discussion and a reading assignment. Here's the second practice test on muscles. Can you give me a quick show of hands or something like that to let me know that you did it? You don't have to have done it. I don't care about that. I just want to know how many people are seeing this for the first time. Okay. Okay, one person's done it that's here. And probably that's because I posted it so late. I think that student wrote me about 12:30, and I got back to that student about 1:30, and I wasn't expecting anybody else. Okay, so let's look at the second practice test on human muscles. Okay, and this is by way of review. Then, now this will open for you at home. Okay, this is exactly how the practicum will look. Okay, so the first question here refers to the star. Name the muscle. Take a look at the list for yourself and pick one out. What is it?
Pectoralis major.
Pectoralis major. Last fall, when I gave this practice test, absolutely nobody missed that. Well, it is a pretty simple one. It's a muscle we recognize, and all we have to do is name it. Okay, now come down here. We'll take the test ourselves. Name the origin of this muscle.
Clavicle, sternum, and coastal cartilages.
It would be right here, exactly. That's the part that doesn't move. This is the part, the insertion out here at the humerus, that moves across. So go ahead. Pretend I'm taking the test. Okay, hey, we're on the same muscle again. Okay, we're going to eat this one up. What's the insertion of the muscle?
Humerus.
Radius? Humerus, absolutely. And then finally, this muscle, we're also going to name the action. It's going to draw the humerus across. May do other things too, so read all of them. Adducts the arm, would pull the arm across to the center. Extend the arm, flexes, abducts, and medially rotates the arm. How about that one?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Or laterally rotates the arm. No, I wouldn't do that. We'll put that. Okay. Name the muscle, serratus anterior. I'm not going to beat around the bush on the names. Okay. Now, how long does it take to recognize one when you know it and click the button? You don't need 70 minutes. Okay. You will take 70 minutes as people review and second guess. Try not to second guess yourself. Your first guess is almost always the one that's right. Name the origin of the muscle.
Lower 8 ribs,
Okay.
or is it upper 8 ribs?
Well, the upper 8 ribs are up here, right?
So lower 8 ribs.
We'll see if that's right. 7. Name the insertion of the muscle. Well, here it is.
Humerus,
Scapula.
Scapula. Sometimes you have two origins on your handout or insertions, and only one is offered on the test. But if it's offered and it's correct, it's the correct answer. What's the action of the serratus anterior?
Protracts and rotates scapula.
Name this muscle. There's no star on it, but it's the only one in red.
infraspinatus,
Right. Name the origin of the muscle.
infraspinatus fossa.
I can see now, of course, that when I put this test together, which was a semester ago, I took it easy on myself. I did all 4 things on each muscle. Name the insertion of this muscle.
Medial border of scapula. Is that right? I'm not sure.
We're going to find out. I'm going to just take your answers for a second. Name the action of this muscle. This is part of the rotator cuff.
Rotates the scapula.
Lateral rotation of humerus.
Okay. Name this muscle.
Bicep brachii.
Brachii. Brachii. What's the origin of this muscle? This is the end that moves, so the origin is going to have to be up here.
Scapula.
15. Name the insertion of this muscle. It's going to have to be down here.
The radius.
Radius. 16. What's the action that flexes the forearm? Now it says flexes elbow, but then I put in parentheses forearm because that's really the correct word. Name this muscle. Okay, you got the underside of the arm. Immediately go up to the palmar reticulatum, find the tendon that is flaring out in all directions, and that'll be connected to the palmaris longus. Well, we come back and find, hey, that is the one they're asking about. Okay, palmaris longus. Name the origin of the palmaris longus. Okay.
Palmar upon that one. I'm not sure.
Well, that's the end that moves.
The humerus.
So yeah, this end here moves. So that's got to be the insertion. The insertion of the muscle, here it is. Palmar app.
Oh yeah, sorry, I got it mixed up.
Okay. And then what's the action of this muscle? Well, it's going to flex the wrist. It's a weak flexor of the wrist, but that's still the answer. Okay, now I bet we've actually missed some. Okay, because I took some of your answers. Hey, and I could have forgotten one too. And where is it? Oh, don't make me go through every one. Anybody see a total?
18 out of 20.
Okay, I don't, oh, here it is. Okay, so we missed two. We need to go and find them. We're doing pretty good up here. You can, okay. The correct answer for the infraspinatus was the insertion is on the humerus. It is a rotator cuff muscle. Okay. This is actually the origin here. So I bet the one we missed next was reversing the origin and the insertion. This is the insertion here because it helps pull the humerus uh, away from the body, abduction.
I think number 7 was the one that was also incorrect.
Did I miss it? Skip right by it.
Yeah, it was actually the upper 8 ribs, I think.
No, nope.
Or maybe it was number 6. Oh,
Here it is. Yeah, it's the lower 8 ribs for the serratus anterior. Can you imagine where the upper 8 ribs are? Think about it. They're very high up there. You feel that bump on the back of your neck, the vertebral prominence, and one finger's width below that starts the upper ribs. So no, it would be too high. Okay. This, of course, will reset, and you can take it again on your own. I'd suggest that you do it. Uh, okay. I'm going to leave this for now. What I'm doing, I'm changing the designation from lecture to lab. Okay. It's really lab for the next session once you get back from your spring break. I hope you don't spend your entire spring break figuring out what to do, if there is anything to do. Okay. I'm going to come back to this today. You can see that I've already got Practicum 2 in place, but it's not active. It was active actually yesterday, but couldn't be opened. It can't be opened now. It can't be opened until next Thursday. Okay. Now, at the very end of what we have for week 9 are review terms for lecture exam 2. Moving ahead, we're going to have a practicum on Thursday. Then you're going to have a week off. Please get the assignment and discussion done sometime during then. And then the following Monday after that, we come back, and I believe that's the 30th of March. And we'll have some lecture. We're not going to get behind on that. But then we're going to have review for L2, because L2 is April 1st. Okay, there's not many teaching days in between. There won't be any new material. You already have all the material for L2. I sent you an email last week outlining what you need to study for L2 and what will be on L2. If you can't find that email, well, let me know, and I keep a copy of each of the emails, and I can get you another one. Okay, but terms for L2. Okay. This is for the lecture exam 2 on April 1st. Now, this isn't lab. This isn't identifying too many things, maybe a picture or two. Okay. But it starts off with digestion, mechanical digestion. Okay. I will be putting up, I'm not trying to ruin your break, but you'll finish the practicum, and maybe you want some practice tests on the lecture exam to come. So I'll be sure to have those. They're ready. So why not? I'm not going to put them up now, confuse you. Okay, but while you are starting spring break and you're taking a flight to Hawaii, you got to have something to do in that 5 hours. Maybe you want to start looking at the terms. Okay, so we start with the digestion and the digestive system. If you're following me down. Okay, all this is digestive system. Cross section of the digestive system. Types of muscle. Switching over to the nephron and the urinary system. Urinary system. The serous membranes, the visceral peritoneum, parietal pleura, visceral pleura, rod ligament. You already had these in your lecture. Now, you don't, unless you download each lecture, and some people may do that, the lectures are all still available in previous modules. They're all identified as lecture, and they would start with the digestive system lecture. Okay. Going down, now we're coming to blood and vessels. And here's the heart, parts of the heart. Now, the heart will definitely be on the third practicum as well. So consider this sort of a blessing that you're studying for two things at the same time. Different types of vessels. There was an elastic artery in the last page, muscular artery here. The makeup of the cross section of a vessel. The types of white blood cells. What's in the formed elements in the way of thrombocytes, platelets, non-formed elements, plasma serum. Trachea got stuck in here because it had got omitted earlier. And now we're doing the respiratory system, which was a short lecture. Now, you look at this and it looks like a lot of terms, but if you were taking notes in a classroom by hand or keyboarding in the classroom, you would be expected to write down all of these and possibly their definition. Okay, any questions about these? You're not going to do anything with these before Thursday. This is after Thursday material. Okay, we're moving along fast here. I'm going to go ahead and show you some photos. Heart, brain, ear, eye. Now, we've already looked at the heart before, but the more times you see it, the easier it will become. This would actually be our lab material. I'm not doing any lecture today. I'm not giving you any lecture because we've got all the lecture covered for L2 on April 1st, and there's no lecture exam material for P2 on Thursday. Okay, so here's our lab for today. I realize it's the 16th. I was close. And the 12th is not right. Okay, the ear. Not many people have difficulty with the ear. Our models are good, and so the pictures of them are good too. These are the parts of the ear you need to know, and whenever I mention it and it's written, you will need to know the function. The pinna is your outer ear. Okay, so you stick an earring in it, not just in the lobe, but up around the top portion, all around the back. People have so many earrings, but they're all stuck in the pinna, the outer ear. I have a picture coming. The auditory canal, that would be where you put a Q-tip. Right on the Q-tip box, it says, do not insert into the ear. Well, if people actually didn't insert into the ear, Q-tip would be out of business. Okay. The tympanum is another name for the tympanic membrane or the eardrum. The eustachian tube. This is a tube that runs from the inner ear, the other opposite side of the tympanum. I'm going to have to show you a picture for this, and comes out in the pharynx. So I'm going to move down to a picture. Here's the pinna. Here's the auditory canal. Here's the eardrum or tympanum. On the other side of the tympanum, you have another tube called the eustachian tube. Here's the name. And it runs to the nasopharynx. The reason that you have this is so your hearing doesn't become distorted when you move from a higher to lower or lower to higher elevation. You want to have the air pressure the same on both sides of the tympanum. If not, it would be like blowing up or pumping air into a drum, a snare drum, for instance, and really making it tight on one side and looser on the other side in comparison. The sound would be distorted. You know as well as I do when you go up a mountain in a car or come down, your ears pop. And when they pop, you're reestablishing the equilibrium of the pressure on both sides of the tympanum. And when you do that reestablishing pressure, for a moment, you can hear clearly. It's great. Continue uphill or downhill, though, and the same problem persists. You've got to somehow get the air on the outside here equal to the air pressure on the inside. Most people do it by talking or chewing gum or just waiting it out because it eventually will pop. Have you ever been to the Palm Springs aerial tramway? That's something you can do over the break. You go up that thing through 5 climate zones from Palm Springs to the top of Mount San Jacinto. And then going up, the pressure changes quite a bit, and your ears gradually adjust and pop. No sweat. But when you come down, I learned a trick. Start chewing gum right away. Start chewing gum. Because for those people who don't, the popping is delayed and the pain can be tremendous. You come down the tramway and people are screaming. Okay. The cochlea contains the receptor cells for sound. The cochlea looks like a snail. It's right here. And inside are the sound receptors. And they send the information to the brain through the cochlear nerve. Attached to the tympanum, right at this spot here. This is the first of the three ossicles on each side. This is the malleus. Now, we don't use the word hammer. And then we have the incus, which is here. You can't see the line touching it, but it does. We don't use the term anvil. And here, the one that does look like a stirrup is the stapes. Malleus, incus, and stapes. Know the order. And it touches onto this chamber called the vestibule. I don't see the term vestibule on the diagram, but I see the nerve coming away from it, the vestibular nerve. These two coming away together are the eighth cranial nerve, the vestibulo-cochlear nerve, the eighth cranial nerve. Here it is down here, underneath vestibule. The vestibule houses fluid for the semicircular canals, which are these three rings. There are three on each side. If you want to get your orientation, two spots is not going to do it. You need three. And so this tells whether your head is leaning forward, backwards, right, or left. And the same is going on in the other ear. The fluid is draining into and out of the semicircular canals into the vestibule. We learn as kids what that drainage means. You know, if you think about it, if you turned your head, take this head, to its right, which would be to this side. If you turned your head down, the fluid would all drain to this side. And you would feel you got your head leaning to the right. But what about the other ear? It would all be draining medially. Okay, it would all be draining towards the nose. Whereas this side drains away from the nose. And if you look the other way, the opposite happens. It doesn't matter that the fluid placement is different in the two sets of semicircular canals. We realize that difference, we learn that difference, and we know the combination of differences means right or it means left or something else. Okay, so that actually takes care of everything. The brain. We'll be doing that in the for the third section. I'm curious. I was just crunching some ice. Do you hear that?
I slightly heard it.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll avoid doing that because I mean, I certainly can hear it. If I can, you should be able to too. Okay. Okay, the brain. Uh, Structures of the brain that you're responsible for are these 15. Okay. And you will have to know most of the functions of these. And if you have a pencil, you can write them down now. You can look them up later. Uh, they will be in the lecture notes as well. Okay, so we'll come back to this. The list doesn't mean much to us right now. Here's a sheep brain. It's a little smaller than our brain. Okay. This is inverted, the bottom side. There should be something right here. Not. But look on the brain in the background. Here's the structure right here. That's what should be here, but it often falls out. And it's sometimes beneficial that it does so we can see better. This is the pituitary gland. We'll have a lot to say about the pituitary when we reach the endocrine system next month. So here's the pituitary gland. It would be located here. You will never be asked the question, what would be located here if it hadn't fallen out? You'd be asked this one. Going backwards from the pituitary gland, you have the pons. The pons is also here in the background. It's not very exciting. It's a commissure, but that simply means it's a pathway of nerves or neurons. Doesn't have any special function of its own. Here's the pons. This swollen part is the medulla oblongata or the medulla. Here it is over here. Medulla is always underneath this structure, which we'll see in a moment, the cerebellum. And then trailing away here and here is the spinal cord. At the very front underside of the brain are two lobes. Here's one. Here's one. Sometimes they look frayed at the end like these. Sometimes they're perfectly round. The olfactory lobes are what these are for smelling. And can you see where they must rest? Turn the thing over in your mind, and the olfactory lobes, of which there are two, rest on the cribriform plate and above the olfactory foramina so that they can receive gaseous smells. This large lower part in this case, or upper part in this case, is the cerebrum or the cerebral cortex. The cerebrum is responsible for higher thought, decision making, thinking in general. Behind the cerebrum is a smaller, older part of the brain called the midbrain. By some, it's the cerebellum. It's here, and it was also here. This is more in control of balance and it's in control of respiration, things that are very vital to any organism, even as it's developing. Here's the brain been sliced longitudinally, a nice, lucky slice when I did this one, so I had to pin it right away or photograph it right away. Okay, this is the cerebellum again that's not labeled here. Okay. In fact, none of these labels were on the previous picture. These are addition to the previous picture. But here's the cerebellum. Here's the cerebrum again. Within the cerebrum, there's a chamber. It's sealed by a membrane right here that any scalpel, not even a scalpel, any probe, any applicator stick could break and open this up. This is the lateral ventricle. Here it is, open down here. The lateral ventricle contains cerebrospinal fluid. That cerebrospinal fluid actually is continuous by channels throughout the brain, and then it enters into the spinal cord to nourish the spinal cord. Come into find the thalamus. It's a rounded structure. It looks like a small scallop. Here's the thalamus. Right below the thalamus, right here, with nothing to describe it except its location below the thalamus, is the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is the seat of the autonomic nervous system, which we'll be going into next as your assignment for nervous tissue gets completed. Behind the thalamus is a small body. It's called the pineal body, or it's called the pineal gland. They're both correct. The pineal gland secretes melatonin. I know you've all heard of melatonin, especially if you travel at all. Melatonin helps you sleep, puts you on a sleep cycle. That's the gland that does that. You won't find it on the other side unless you're lucky enough to have slit this with a scalpel right down the middle. It's very fragile. When we show you a picture of it, we'll show you a picture that's good like this one. Behind that is a larger structure called the corpora quadrigemina. It's also an area of commissure. In other words, uh, switching station. A lot of neurons pass through it, but it doesn't have any secretion to speak of. It doesn't serve to nourish the spinal cord or anything like that. Come back here to the bottom or the base of the cerebellum, and you see this slit. This is the fourth ventricle. We found the lateral ventricle, and let's make that plural. Lateral ventricles. There's a ventricle 1 and 2. You don't have to know the 1 and 2, but there are 2 of them. There's a third ventricle in the middle of the brain here, but it is always destroyed in dissection. And then the fourth ventricle here and over here pop out at the base of the cerebellum. Within the cerebellum, you see this tree or shrub-like structure. And you know, we have to have a name for everything. This is the arbor vitae, arbor vitae, meaning the living bush. If we want the arbor vitae, we will say, name this tree-like structure. If we want the cerebellum, and we're pointing to this, we would say, name this structure, not the tree-like structure within it. The corpus callosum is the only one I didn't do yet, and that is a thick layer that goes all the way around the lateral ventricle. Here it is here, here it is here. The corpus callosum attaches from one side to the other and sends information and thoughts from one side to the other. If you, for instance, learned uh, a game or a puzzle, and you had an eye patch on your right eye, you learned how to do it with your left eye only. That information would go into the left eye, cross over to the right brain. Okay. Well, how? Through the corpus callosum. The information comes in, and now it goes across. So when you take the patch off the right eye can do the task just as well as the left eye because they've communicated with each other. And in experiments that I don't know if I condone, but experiments with monkeys, they would sever this corpus callosum, and then what one eye learned, the other could not. Okay. Nice picture, just a little bit weird color. Okay. Cerebrum, out here. The lateral ventricle is the space. The corpus callosum, the area around it. Here's the pineal body. And here's the thalamus. Hypothalamus is not labeled, but it would be right about here. The corpora quadrigemina, the pons, the medulla, which is always underneath the cerebellum, and spinal cord, a nice fourth ventricle. Okay. And they do not have the arbor vitae tagged, but it's pretty obvious. That's a great picture. You're responsible for the parts of the brain that you're going to see below. It may be too small right now. You can visit our homepage, the homepage being the website that I gave you in the syllabus, and get a larger version there, or you can blow it up yourself before you print it. Okay. But you're responsible for identifying the 15 structures that they are and knowing what their function is. This is not my favorite part of any test or section, but it is a very important part of the third practicum that you know these. Okay, then we'll do the eye. Okay, this first part tells you we use sheep eyes and models. I think the models are better than the sheep eye. Uh, you'll see why. You're going to need to know the cornea. Well, without even having a picture, if you touch your eye, or if you didn't have a contact lens and you could touch the front of your eye, the part that you would touch is the cornea. If you get something in your eye, it touches the cornea. When you look at somebody and you say their pupils are big or small or dilated or full blown or whatever, you're looking right back into the far structures of the eye going through the iris. The iris is opened up or it's closed down to control the amount of light coming in and the size of the pupil. The pupil is not a structure. The pupil is what's left when the surrounding iris enlarges or condenses. The area in front of our lens is the anterior chamber. It's between the lens and the cornea. And you know I've got a picture of it coming for you. Aqueous humor is what fills the anterior chamber. So you touch your eye, you touch the cornea. If you were to push through, there's a small chamber behind the cornea called the anterior chamber. It's filled with a liquid called aqueous humor, very watery, but it does help maintain the shape of the cornea. Behind the lens is a very large cavity or chamber called the posterior chamber. So the ball of the eye, as you might think of it, is mostly posterior chamber and it's filled with vitreous humor, which is a jello-like material. The iris is the colored part of your eye, if yours is colored. Uh, and it changes size to control light passage.
Charlie, I have a quick question.
Yes, please.
What exactly are you meaning when you say the lens of the eye?
I think I have to jump ahead to show you. Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Well, if this lens is falling out, this would be it back here. That would be the lens, but it fits right here. Just hang on a second. Okay. Let's use this picture. Okay. Here's the anterior chamber. The cornea runs here. Okay. So far, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, the aqueous humor is inside. This is the iris colored part, and the space it leaves is the pupil. And then when the light goes through the pupil, it immediately strikes the lens. This is the lens right here. It's called
Gotcha. That makes more sense.
crystalline lens. Okay. If you don't need glasses or did when you're a kid, then it should focus the light on a spot in the back called the fovea centralis. This does not show it. I have it in my pictures, so you'll see it in a moment. If the lens is too small in depth or a little bit too large in depth, which is frequent, then it will focus ahead of the fovea centralis or behind, and then you get blurred vision, and the optometrist can usually take care of that.
All right, thank you. That was very helpful.
Thank you. Thanks for asking. I mean, if you let things go by, anybody, you miss out on the explanation that you might want. Okay, now let me back up. I was here. Okay,
I have a question.
Yes.
Is it common for a lot of people with glasses to have astigmatism?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think almost everybody with glasses has some amount of astigmatism. Uh, I'm not an optometrist or ophthalmologist, but that's what mine told me. But she said my astigmatism is meaningless. It's not bothering me. I've been wearing glasses since I was 2 years old.
Same here.
I'm supposed to go in for my checkup. I got the card here on my table, and they want me back in. Sure, my insurance makes the visit for the ophthalmologist $15. I can handle that. And then they usher you out to the front room where you're expected to buy hundreds of dollars worth of frames and things. Come on. Uh, I'm not a fashionista. I don't care about the frames. Use the ones from last time. They just like want to faint. They can't believe that anybody would use their old frames. Okay. Uh, let's look at the pictures that I have in the order that I put them in there for some reason. I must have had a reason. Okay. The white part around the outside, the white of the eye as it's called. Okay. The white of the eye is the sclera. It's the protective layer. It's thick, it's coarse, it's fibrous. Okay. You can only do so much, however. The anterior cavity is here, but the cornea has been removed. The iris is here, and that's the colored portion. The lens is here, but as you saw earlier, should be up here. I have tried over and over to glue or otherwise attach the lens in place here. Sometimes I was successful, but usually it fell apart. And now we can't find the lens at all. So don't need it. We got a good picture. The blue area, the next layer in. And here the part of the retina has been removed and the blue area shown is the choroid coat. Here it is up here, choroid coat. When light comes in, it really wants to head right back to that spot there. That's the fovea centralis. It'll be labeled in a moment. That's the fovea centralis. But light also goes through the other portions of the retina, which is what color is this? Red?
Red.
Good. It goes through the retina, and that's where the light perceiving cells are, the rods and the cones. And the rods for black and the cones for different colors. And then they send that information by way of the nervous system here out. It goes out through the optic nerve. Here's the nerve up here. You don't see it going farther, but of course it goes right to the brain. Doesn't have far to go. The yellow is an area called the optic disc. Here it is here, where all of these nerve pathways bringing light information come together but obliterate the retina's ability to receive any more light. This is your blind spot, also known as the optic disc. You can't perceive anything in that small part of your eyeball. Not to worry, if you've got two eyes, your other eye will make up for it. The function of the choroid coat is this. When light comes in, it goes through the retina. Fine, we want it to go through one time, and then we don't want that light anymore. Wait for the next photon to come into the eye. We don't want that light bouncing around in here like ping pong ball. So what happens is the light passes through the retina and is absorbed by the choroid coat. It absorbs. Now here it's a dark blue, sometimes it's a light blue, sometimes it's silver, often it's black. And it does a good job of absorbing stray or spent light, if I can call it that. Okay, choroid coat, retina, sclera, pupil is this area here. The iris is here. The lens, unfortunately, fell. Optic disc, optic nerve, and I'll mention it without a label, fovea centralis, where light would presumably land if it were to be able to go straight back. You definitely wouldn't want the light to enter and go over to the optic disc. It couldn't be perceived at all. Okay, this is the same model, but taken from above it. And you'll notice here's the retina again, same color. In front of the retina, but within the posterior chamber. This is called the ora serrata. And this down here, like tough tire tread, is the ciliary body. You can see the difference between the ora serrata and ciliary body, but not from a photograph that I've ever seen. You really, that one need to have in person. Let's start with the ciliary body down here. The ciliary body attaches to the circumference of the lens. When the ciliary body contracts or relaxes, it changes the shape of the lens. That's got to be a flexible lens, and it will only be flexible in any of us until we're about 40. After that, the flexibility, not so good. When you are reading a book and look up because somebody walked in the room, your eye adjusts quickly and the focus seems uniform and smooth. Once you're 40 or thereabouts, it takes longer. It takes longer to make that adjustment. And that's about what the time when a lot of people get reading glasses. As soon as you get reading glasses, it's over. You're not going to get it to improve at all. Okay. It's a minor inconvenience since these days people seem to love glasses anyway. The heart we have gone over twice at least, and I've included it here. because it is a part of Lab 3. And there's a chalkboard diagram that I made years ago. And you can see it if you want. You can go to the spot or just click on this guy. I want to. It won't do it in expanded view. So you just back off to regular view. And yeah, that doesn't, that looks like a cartoonish heart, but that's what I would draw on the board for everybody. And this would be considered lecture material. This is lecture material for L2. L2 is going to be on the 1st of April, okay, when you've come back. And you need to know the parts of the heart, okay? They're listed for you in that email. If I get enough people that want me to send another one, I'll probably just send to everyone. So don't think I think you need it if you end up with the second one. Okay. But this is pretty easy to read off of the board. Here are the structures of the heart you need to know. I went over, I believe, all of them with you. If I missed one, let me know. I have time for that. I'm going to run through these to give you a quick review. Okay. I know I usually give you a break by this time, but I can see that this is going to be a short day, and except for questions, and they can last as long as you want. Okay, so let me do this, and if you need to uh, hit the kitchen or the bathroom or whatever, just back yourself out. Okay, here we go. Here's the aortic arch, three vessels coming off of the top of it. The brachiocephalic or brachiocephalic trunk going to the arm and head, the common carotid, and the subclavian on the left side. Here's the right auricle receiving blood from the superior vena cava. The inferior vena cava barely makes a showing down here. The right ventricle is inside here, and the blood flows out of it through the pulmonary trunk and subdivides into the pulmonary arteries, goes to the lungs and comes back through the pulmonary veins. Here's the auricle expanded, the atrium here, the right ventricle, the left ventricle, and in between them, the IV septum. Here's the left atrium. Here's the pulmonary semilunar valve, three cusps inside the pulmonary trunk. Here's the tricuspid valve, the mitral valve, and the trabeculae carneae, the waffling of muscular tissue making up the inside of the ventricles. This is the left side, the larger side, left ventricle. Here's the mitral valve, the cords, chordae tendineae, Left atrium is higher than the mitral valve. Right atrium is higher than the tricuspid valve. Then the right ventricle, the IV septum again. Apex, an easy one, but we often ask it at the bottom. Here's the mitral valve again. Chordae tendineae show really well. The aortic semilunar valve is an escape over this side, going to the aorta. And here's the papillary muscle. Papillary muscle holds to the chordae tendineae. Chordae tendineae hold to papillary muscle and the valve cusp, mitral or the tricuspid. Papillary muscles are only and always found in the ventricles. No papillary muscles anywhere else, only in the ventricles. Tissue layers. The outside is the epicardium, also known as visceral pericardium. The muscular area is the myocardium. And the endocardium is anything that the blood touches on the inside here. Okay. I think I may have put on your study material for L2, that's April 1st. I may have put the fetal circulation. Okay, it is going to be on that test. L2. No, fetal circulation is going to be on P3. So I don't have to show it to you today. We've got plenty of time for that one. Okay, anybody with any questions?
Charlie, I have a question. I know you sent out an email with what's going to be on P2. Would you mind sending that to me again? Do you want me to send you an email?
Please send me an email.
Okay, thank you.
That keeps me honest. If anybody else wants one, save me some time and ask for it now. Send me an email. Okay, or perhaps if I get enough of those, I'll just get that email out of my sent box and forward it to all of you. It'll get there though, take it. Well, with the extra time you're going to have, are you going to use it to study? Don't answer. I sure hope so. Get past this test with a decent grade. Doesn't have to be an A. Get past this test with a decent grade, and you're really on your way. You'd like an A or B on this test. Okay.
I have a
Okay.
quick question.
Yes.
In talking about the cat muscles, are we going to be looking at images like we have been already, the live models of the cat?
Yes. I should have gone over the cat muscles with you right now. You know, let me give you a break and you decide if you're coming back. Okay. and it will take probably about 20 minutes to do the cat muscles. Okay. But yes, I'm going to use those images. I'm going to use the models. I'm going to use the type of model that you saw in the practice test too. Uh, Most of them I took the pictures myself, but some of them I didn't. But the cat, they're all mine. And yes, it's going to be on there. And I want you to feel comfortable. If you already feel comfortable with that, and you just got to learn those origins, insertions, and actions because you already know the names, well, you don't need to see it again. But if you would like to see it again, I will be back in uh, at 3:40. It's 3:28 right now. Okay,
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
break till
Thank
3:40.
you.
All right. I'll see you then.
Okay, we're back.
Hi, Charlie.
Howdy. Anybody have any questions or preferences as to where we look first? There are more human models on the exam than cat. However, if you feel comfortable or more comfortable with the human, then we should do the cat. What do you think?
I would like to start with the cat.
Okay. Oh, did you get your way because you spoke up? That's all it takes. Okay. Okay. You're seeing my cursor?
Yeah, I see
Yes.
it.
Okay. I'm in way back at week 5 here when we began this material. And I'm going to try this one. Muscles or cat muscles. It's just a link. Okay. We've seen this before. I'm going to, I'm not going to show you these that say not required. Okay. Because not required means what? Exactly what it says. You don't have to give the origin or the insertion, but you do have to name and give the uh, action. So I think that those are the easiest ones, uh, unless you don't. You're the one taking the test. So if we'll come back to that. I'm going to start with the cat. Then I'm going to start in a different place than I did before. Uh, I'm going to start with number 31. I don't know if you want to tick them off or anything. Uh, I normally, in face-to-face, we have hands-on dissection. I start with large muscles because they're easier to get out and the students have less trouble with them. So I'm going to start with the tensor fascia lata. And okay, we're on the rear leg. And we'll take advantage of the fact that there are several pins and do all the pins at once. Okay, here's the tensor fascia lata, also known as the IT band or the iliotibial tract. Okay. On my test, I don't remember if how I put it down. It's one of those three, though, probably IT band. Okay, it covers another muscle completely. Here in this dissection, it's been lifted up, and the muscle underneath, from here over to here, and underneath it, there's a muscle. This is the vastus lateralis for abducting the leg. Okay. Behind the vastus lateralis is an even larger muscle, somewhat flap-like. It's flat. This is the biceps femoris. The biceps femoris is one of the hamstring muscles of both the cat and the human. Here is that iliotibial tract again coming up. Here's the vastus lateralis. And over here, this is the biceps femoris again. If I follow the IT track straight up all the way. And then with my probe, we're just imagining we're dissecting here. I find this muscle back here, a rounded muscle. You cannot see it without feeling it. So for our purposes, it has to be dissected for you, and it will be. This is the gluteus medius. And then a flap-like muscle comes across it at the posterior. This is the gluteus maximus, which is smaller in the cat and larger in the human. Gluteus medius, nice and round, about the size of a thumbprint. And then the gluteus maximus back here. There's a third muscle back here, which will not be pinned at all because we do not have it. It's the caudo femoralis. And we don't have this muscle. So we don't cover it other than me talking about it just for a second here. Gluteus medius and maximus. Okay. This muscle on the inner thigh, from here to here, it has been bisected. That's proper to do that. But this muscle covers half of the leg, half of the thigh. This is the sartorius. In humans, it runs across from here to here. It's doing that in the cat too, but it doesn't look like it's so curved as it is in the human. In both the human and the cat, this is the longest muscle. Okay, the longest muscle, sartorius. This is cut in half so that it can be pinned away, and we can see later on what's underneath. On the other side, okay, being separated from the sartorius by this vessel, the great saphenous vein, this is the gracilis muscle. Gracilis. Now here's the gracilis that's been bisected up here. We'll see that in a moment. So the whole upper thigh, gracilis and sartorius. Okay, now we've opened this side up over here. Here's gracilis. Here's the other part of the gracilis. Here's sartorius. Here's the other part of the sartorius. And the first thing we can see is this triangular area. It's very easy to take a probe and slit it. Okay. This slit right here, for instance, is real. Okay. And this little slit is artificial. You don't have to know anything like that. Just realize, look at this triangular area. And this is the abductor magnus. I believe throughout the test, I'll be using human terms. Okay. I'll be going over the test again tomorrow. And if I see any cat terms, I will eliminate them. So this will be adductor magnus. This was the biceps femoris again. I wasted our time coming back to it. Here's the biceps femoris on the side. And behind it, at the back or posterior of the leg, is a really tendinous muscle, cord-like, and very, very firm. This is the semitendinosus. Three muscles of the hamstrings are the biceps femoris, 37, semitendinosus, and under it, we're going to see it in a moment, number 39, the semimembranosus. Okay, this is the same picture, or same cat we used for adductor femoris a moment ago, adductor magnus, I'm sorry. But this slit is correct. This is not artificial. Okay, and so this portion here is the semimembranosus. Here's the gracilis pulled out of the way. Here's the sartorius pulled out of the way. Sartorius over here as well. And here's the other part of the gracilis down here. This is semimembranosus, one of the hamstring muscles. Thun vastus lateralis. To see the vastus medialis on the cat, we want to see the inner thigh. So again, we have the same setup. Okay, and when we remove the sartorius, which is here, and sartorius is here. We look first for this most medial portion. That's the vastus medialis. This large muscle here, number 43, has been bisected. I wouldn't do that in my class, so maybe I took pictures of somebody else's. This large cord-like rounded muscle is the rectus femoris, straight on the femur, rectus femoris. Vastus intermedius will not be on the test. We did rectus femoris. Gastrocnemius, now we're in the lower leg. On the backside, we call this our calf muscle. Here's the gastrocnemius here. Okay. And the gastrocnemius over in this compartment. This muscle number 45 is the tibialis anterior. I told you if you touch your shin bone, well, we don't use that word in here. When you touch the anterior border of the tibia and then move laterally just a little bit, the tissue gets soft. That's your tibialis anterior. This number 48, okay, is the extensor digitorum longus. It's coming down on the front side and it's going to go to all digits. This one, number 48 and 45, both come down on the anterior side of the foot. But the one that is most medial is the tibialis anterior, and the one that's most lateral is the extensor digitorum longus. Here's the gastrocnemius hiding back here, and not separated out yet. This one is the soleus, and not separated out in this picture. This one is the fibularis longus. Don't worry, we have them. Okay, here's the gastrocnemius again, unlabeled. It would be number 44. And then the one under it is 46. That's the soleus. That's the soleus. If I were to take a small probe, metal probe, I can push it through this connective tissue at the back ankle, at the Achilles tendon, can push it in there and slide it up and separate the gastrocnemius and the soleus from the rest. This one being the fibularis longus, this one being the extensor digitorum longus, and this one unlabeled is the tibialis anterior.
Which muscle is it again that you said wraps around underneath the foot? And does it do that in the cat?
Yes, it does, and it's the fibularis. It's number 47.
Okay.
Well, we saw this one. This was the extensor digitorum longus again. Don't need to see it again. Okay, I have a few down here. I was going to fix that one. Don't like that one. Please be sure that even though they're in the not required section for uh, functions, you need to know the internal intercostals here and the external intercostals here. We won't have those on the cat. So let's move back up. Do the facial muscles of the cat. Masseter, any problem with that one? Okay, I sort of use this transverse jugular as a guide here. Anything below it is sternohyoid, number 25. 23, have to be careful with this picture. See where the pin goes right there. This is the mylohyoid. You can say mylohyoideus. That means I can too. Here's the digastric or digastricus. One, and the other one over here. This one that goes from the sternum to the mastoid. Large muscle, one on each side. Sternomastoideus. You can bring the head to the right or to the left or forward. The external oblique. Okay, on this cat, don't be fooled. The latissimus dorsi has been lifted out of the way. This is the external oblique with the striations or stripes running down and medial. When the external oblique are removed, or in this case, rolled back, here it is, this is the external. You have to have a fairly tough cat to do this with. But here are the internal oblique muscles, this whole area here, and you see the striations now run upward. Okay, from lateral to medial, they go in an upward direction. Transverse abdominis, a little bit here. Can't see any down here. You wouldn't be incorrect to pin it back here, but this is better. And 30 is this muscle here. It looks so great in models. It looks so great in cat models and human models, but when you actually try to dissect it out, you run into a problem. The muscle is the rectus abdominis. The problem is it's covered with the linea alba. Okay, we've done all those. And now we'll start at the beginning and finish them up. Okay, the trapezius is in 3 parts. You'll only be asked one, and the trapezius is the answer no matter what. Okay, so it starts back here at this point, comes forward to here, back, and back. Spinotrapezius, acromiotrapezius, and clavotrapezius. The latissimus dorsi is here. Latissimus dorsi runs from the lumbodorsa fascia, that's this area back here, and inserts on the humerus for running, climbing, latissimus dorsi. We'll do number 4 while we've got a good picture of it. Number 4 is the rhomboides between the shoulder blades. Okay. Rhomboideus is okay. If we lift the latissimus dorsi number 2 up, we can see the finger-like serratus anterior. Serratus anterior. This is a piece of the infraspinatus. This I'd give out extra credit if I'd given enough. Anybody want to guess what that is?
Number 3? Is that what
What?
you want? Which number?
No, where my cursor is.
Oh,
Is it the trapezius?
Yes, it is. Exactly. I'm going to embarrass you. That was impressive.
I mean, it goes over the top of the scapula, so I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, it's the acromiotrapezius, actually. Okay. We did that. Okay, pectoralis major on the cat is this upper portion here. And you know it in the human. We got it on the practice quiz too. That's the pectoralis major. And the pectoralis minor is comparatively large in the cat. So there's a difference. There's the biceps brachii in the cat. Okay. It looks right. It looks where it should be. deltoids in the cat, 7A, B, and 7C. Some people have difficulty with this 7C being a deltoid. Well, it is. Okay. And when you go up here, it's continuous with the clavotrapezius. This is the spinotrapezius. I'm sorry, spinodeltoid, acromiodeltoid, and then 7 is the clavo or clidodeltoid. All of them can be called deltoid. This number 12. 11 was the biceps brachii, and we can't see it here. We can see this big muscle, two parts of it, the triceps, and then immediately after the triceps is the brachialis. Brachialis. Here's the supraspinatus. The trapezius has been removed mostly. And here's the infraspinatus. Number 10 labels one of the heads of the triceps. We did the biceps, we did the brachialis. Okay. We'll start at this point here. We're looking at three muscles. This one, see where the pin goes right there? This one, and this one. This one is the flattest, most spread out. And if you had it in person, you'd follow it and see that it goes out to all of the digits. Okay. I would make sure that any picture you had went out to all of the digits. Or I'd use a human model if the cat was not good. This 14 is the palmaris longus. On either side of the palmaris longus are flexor carpi muscles. On this side, this is the flexor carpi ulnaris. On this side is the flexor carpi radialis. This number 14, just from memory right now, was the palmaris longus. Here's the flexor carpi radialis, number 15, and it's broken into two parts, 1 and 2. All carpi muscles, there's 4 of them, 2 flexors and 2 extensors. All of them are in 2 parts, 2 heads, so they can easily split during dissection. On its own, though, number 16 is the pronator teres, sort of a half muscle going just part way, and it pronates or turns down the hand. Pronator teres. From a lateral view, this number 17 is a very thin muscle, often broken, but here's a really nice one. This is the brachioradialis, also known as the radiobrachialis. They even sound the same. Underneath it lies the extensor carpi radialis. Extensor carpi radialis. We can actually see this muscle from both sides, this lateral view and from the medial view. Extensor carpi radialis. Number 19 is this muscle, very strong, all the way down. And if you could follow it, you'd see it breaks into several digits. This is the extensor digitorum. That's the new name, actually. It used to be called extensor digitorum communis. Either is, of course, fine. Sometimes when you can't see all the way down, there's an obvious clue given to you. You won't be given a ambiguous question, okay? Because if, for instance, I can't follow this down and see it split, then I can also pin and show these other two, and you can go 1, 2, okay, there it is, extensor digitorum. The next one down is the extensor digitorum minimi, and it only goes to the little finger. The last one, I could have done it on the previous slide. Here was the extensor digitorum. Here was the extensor digitorum minimi. And now this last one here is the extensor carpi ulnaris. Remember, the thumb is always on the radial side.
So if you were to turn the arm, would the extensor carpi ulnaris touch the flexor carpi ulnaris?
Absolutely. Yes. That was week 5. Okay, we actually went through. I don't know how beneficial it was. It should have been the more the better. We went through all of the cat muscles. Okay, and if you're still game, I'm going to go through all the human muscles. If you get tired at any point, you can come back and watch it on the recording if you want to. If you don't need to, well, then you don't need to. So here we go. We're doing right in order. Okay. The trapezius here. It's also up here. Latissimus dorsi over here. Going to the humerus. Number 8, supraspinatus. Number 9, infraspinatus. Obviously, I'm saving us some time. The serratus anterior on this model is down here. The rhomboides show here. And there's the trapezius once again. The pectoralis major with a long origin here on the sternum. Pectoralis major, insertion on the humerus. Here's the pectoralis minor. Let me use this one just because I think it's better. to show you the internal oblique. No, I'm sorry. Internal intercostals right here, here, here. They're for forced exhalation. The external intercostals here, here. They're for inhalation. Okay, they raise the ribs. The deltoid, saw those. Okay, this one so far is the trickiest, uh, and hopefully I will avoid the tricky ones and fish them out when I review it tomorrow. I don't really think there are any, but if I find something, I can swap it for another picture. Why did I call this one the fishiest or whatever? It's to show a couple of things. The triceps down here, one head, two heads. But, if you've never seen this model before, you might lose your orientation right away. And I don't want to ask you a question like that. But if you can learn it on a tricky model, okay, so much the better when you get it asked of you on a more straightforward model. This was triceps, this is triceps, and this is the brachialis is next. Remember we said it on the cat? Your cursor or your probe on the triceps, move forward, and immediately you touch the brachialis.
While going through the muscles, would you be okay with mentioning their origins and insertions too? Just so we can like visualize it with the picture and just a quick, like, this is where it connects in.
Well, the only thing that always happens when I do that, that I worry about is that some people have learned it from the sheets here, and I didn't. I didn't learn it from the sheets, so we don't come out with the same wording. Uh, as I remember to do it, I will. Where are we?
Okay.
Well, you don't understand. I mean, I don't think you understand what problem I can get myself into by saying it a different way. Where are we?
No worries. You don't have to. It just helps me with visualization is all.
Well, you know what? It helps with visualization. But what really helps is doing it to yourself. Make that muscle do what the action says. And then after you've done that, ask yourself, where did the muscle hold still? And then where did the muscle move? And then read the origin and insertion and see how much that agrees. Okay. This is another of the ones that would be confusing uh, for your first time, and probably you've gotten past it by now. Uh, Maybe even by now you've memorized my number 14 as always palmaris longus. That won't do you any good on the test, of course. If you could come down and see this end here, here's the extensor retinaculatum. You can see this end, it would flare out, but you can't. So I really can't use this particular picture, but we can still learn from it. Okay. And here's the then palmaris longus that inserts on all of the digits. Number 13 over here, we'd have to be able to see that this is the pinky finger to know that this is the uh, flexor carpi ulnaris. And on the other side, another double-headed muscle, not showing its two-headedness here. 15 is the flexor carpi radialis, flexor carpi radialis. I think with the multiple choice, it doesn't lead you astray too much. When you have to write it yourself, often mixing up the words flexor and extensor happens frequently. Here's the pronator teres from the humerus to the radius, turning the arm into a prone position that's face down. No, we don't need to do that one. Okay. What's lacking in this particular model is the brachioradialis muscle. Okay, it's not labeled. It's here. You should barely see it. You see this muscle here? And here's its tag. Wouldn't say number 17. We probably have it on another one. This is the number 18, the extensor carpi radialis. 19, the extensor digitorum, or the extensor digitorum communis, or even the extensor communis. 20, the extensor digitorum minimi. 21, the extensor carpi ulnaris. You will not, on the test, need to worry about a picture like that one, where you don't have a clue as to which end is which. You will. Okay. We just did the flexor carpi ulnaris, or not? Who says the extensor? This number 17 shows the brachioradialis. It's as if you had your arm straight in front of you. Okay, here's our pronator teres again. Okay, and here's the brachioradialis. It's one large muscle, quite flat, quite thin. I don't know why I was doing it, but I was looking at a bodybuilding book on muscles, and they showed muscles specifically for the brachioradialis. People end up looking like monsters. I'm sorry, I have really gotten lost as to where I've covered. Yeah, I just got all those. Okay. On this guy here, the origins and insertions of the facial muscles are a little bit different. Most facial muscles do not attach to bone. They attach to another facial muscle. They're all rather interconnected. Yes, some of them certainly attach to bone, like number 59, which is the frontalis. Frontalis is also sometimes called the epicranium. The answer on our test will be frontalis. Around the eye, the orbicularis oculi, it attaches really onto itself. The zygomaticus, there's one, there's the other. The zygomaticus muscles attach to the tissue at the corners of the lips. Their origin is the zygomatic process. Number 22, section, it's the masseter. It attaches to the zygomatic arch, originates there, insertion is on the mandible. Okay, this is a nice model. It's just it's a little small and you want to pick it up all the time. The masseter is over here. We've just touched on that already. We've actually done all of them at, looking at the cat. Here's number 26 is the sternomastoid, attaching, originating at the sternum and insertion on the mastoid process. Sternomastoid. The paired one is not present over here. 25 is the sternohyoid. It goes up to the hyoid bone where it has its insertion. On the other side, straight up the middle, is the mylohyoideus. '24 over here or over here. These are the digastric muscles. Okay. It's a rather old model. 27. 27 is the external oblique. You know it's external because the striations are going down and towards the center. External oblique has its insertion. Its origin is on the linea alba. This is the linea alba. The linea alba extends over and covers here. It covers this, the rectus abdominis muscle. Rectus abdominis, you can say that it has its origin on the xiphoid process and its insertion on the pubic bone, on the pubic arch, or you can turn it around and say that it's a pubic arch that serves as the origin and the xiphoid process serves as the insertion. How can you do that? Because if you're lying down, you could either pull your legs up towards you, okay, making the pubic arch the insertion, or put your legs down and do a sit-up, pull your upper body up, and that makes the xiphoid process the insertion. The internal oblique number 28 here. The internal oblique runs from lateral to medial in an upward fashion. The transverse abdominis here. All of these are meant to rotate the torso and to compress the abdominal contents. That includes number 30, the rectus abdominis. Okay. This model wouldn't give you any trouble anymore. You can see the upper portion here is the gluteus medius, and the larger portion, the gluteus maximus. Extending away from the gluteus medius and joining with connective tissue from the tensor latum muscle, which is this piece right here. They come together to form the iliotibial tract, or IT tract. That covers, we've said it before, the vastus lateralis. If we go from front to back, this is actually front, although it's at the top. IT tract, vastus lateralis. Next one back is the biceps femoris, the first of the hamstrings. And then 38, the next one, the cord-like one, is the semitendinosus, another hamstring. Now, what's the orientation that we have here? Here's number 37. This is the biceps femoris. We had it on its side a moment ago, but now we turned it away. Biceps femoris is next to the semitendinosus. And then that muscle, the semitendinosus, is on top of the semimembranosus, here to here. The semimembranosus is a lot larger than it might look here because it's covered. Okay. Here's our IT track again. And then this one is vastus lateralis. We actually have here a left leg. Doesn't matter, you're not going to be asked that. Okay, now we're on the inner thigh, the longest muscle from the ilium all the way down to the medial condyle of the femur. I'm sorry, of the tibia. It actually stretches over two joints, including the knee itself, to reach the tibia. This is the sartorius muscle. This is the vastus medialis. This one is the rectus femoris. So the top of the leg, if you tapping on yourself right now, okay, this is this one. And it's turned downward. Where's the vastus lateralis? It's going to be on the other side over here. 36, adductor magnus. The gracilis is this large flap here. This is the medial thigh. You're looking at it from the medial side. Here's the gracilis. Here's the adductor magnus. On the posterior of the leg, we can see the semitendinosus. And above it is the semimembranosus. And above it is the semitendinosus. Okay, here's the knee, upper leg. Now the lower leg in the posterior part is starting with number 44. That's the gastrocnemius. Next one, soleus. Next one, fibularis longus, and notice the gap between the posterior two and the rest. 48's creeping in. I think we've got a better picture of it though. Rotation. If you're wondering why 44 and then 45 is way on the other side, tibialis anterior, we'll see it in a second. Why not put them in order? Unfortunately, when this was first done, we started with 44 and then we had 45, and no one did these three. So I decided to do the three, but I already had a 44 and 45 on everybody's handout. So that's why 46, 7, and 8. Okay, this view is probably better. 44, the gastrocnemius is here. Then 46, the soleus. 47, the fibularis. 48, extensor digitorum longus. And then 45 is the tibialis anterior. The important thing here is to know that the teres major is has its insertion on the humerus along with the latissimus dorsi. These two have got to be switched. I said I was going to do that the other day, and I was doing some switching and stuff, and it looks like I didn't do that. So I'll get to it, send out an email, and say that I've made the switch. Okay. Sorry about that. This is teres minor. This is infraspinatus. Okay. And on the back side, upside, the supraspinatus and the subscapularis. So 4 muscles make up what we call the rotator cuff. On the back side that we can't see right now, okay, is the subscapularis, then the supraspinatus, infraspinatus, and teres minor. Okay. I don't know how that got by, but it's got to go away. Okay, those are the rotator cuff. Teres major is not a part of the rotator cuff. Okay, here's a diagram more or less that shows the subscapularis. The pectineus, located right here. Again, we're on the inner thigh. You can tell because there's the sartorius, okay? And this little muscle right here at the crotch is the pectineus. So is major, right here and here. These muscles are the prime flexors of the thigh. That means they raise the leg up. Okay. They don't have a connection to the lower leg, but they do to the thigh itself. Very important. Backing up for a moment, the diaphragm. I said this the other day and asked you hopefully to remember it or write it down. If I say it again, you're going to know it's got to be on the test. The diaphragm is the prime mover of respiration. The diaphragm. Often, it's so easy not to even remember it as a skeletal muscle, but it is. It is a skeletal muscle. Okay. I missed a couple on this side. The levator labii superioris, the sneering muscle. It attaches to the maxilla and the nasal bone and inserts at the edge of the lips. Around the mouth itself, orbicularis oris. Underneath the masseter, which is removed here, is the buccinator, which if you were blowing, like that blows soup cold or something like, or candles out, that muscle will come into play. It draws your cheeks inward. Here's the temporalis. No useful function for that unless in some primitive culture, wiggling your ears is a sign of aggression or something. Don't forget the extensor pollicis. Okay. This one with its insertion on the thumb is called the hitchhiker's muscle, but extensor pollicis. I fixed this one, whereas I didn't fix the other one. I will. 71 now is the extensor retinaculatum. Let me try you on these quickly. Well, The muscles of the eye, most of them are pretty straightforwardly named. This one going underneath is the inferior rectus, draws the eye downward. Across the top, you can see it, it's cut off, but it goes here. Superior rectus causes the eye to look up. Lateral rectus, number 66, abducts the eye. Number 67 is over on the other side. And when it contracts, it adducts the eye or causes the eye to look in. 69, that's a little temperamental one. This is the superior oblique, goes up, curves in, and attaches here. And when it contracts, it will actually lower the eye, and it also abducts the eye. Both oblique muscles, we'll see the other one in a moment, both oblique muscles abduct the eye. There's the insertion of the inferior oblique right down here. The inferior oblique is in here. Barely see it. Yeah, I have to move my monitor. The inferior oblique runs under the eye to that spot where I showed you in the last frame. I'll go back to it. That's the inferior oblique. When it contracts, it also abducts the eye, but it also raises the eye. Inferior raises, superior depresses. Here's where that comes out. Runs under the eye, attaches here. Give me a second to just run through this list, see what I have possibly skipped, or especially if I think you need to know it.
Charlie, I have a question. I know you went over this, but I just want to make sure the abductor magnus is on the posterior side, right?
There isn't an abductor magnus. Do you mean adductor?
Yeah, adductor. I'm sorry. Yeah, adductor magnus. That's on the posterior side.
No, it's on the, well, you know, it depends on how you want to look at a cat, you know. It's on the inner thigh. On the
Okay.
inner thigh. So like I was saying, if you took a ball, or volleyball or something, put it between your legs and squeeze, that's where it is on both sides.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's see. One more place I want to look, and it's, oh yeah, okay. Here it is. I just want to take a quick look at this additional terms sheet and see if there's anything I've left out or something that you want me to go over. Okay, so you take a look at it too, please. Okay, Risorius, we've never gone over that. It will not be on the test. Okay. I'll get rid of it. Be sure, when you're asked what's a synergist of this muscle, or what's okay, don't worry about iliopsoas. Don't worry about iliacus. Okay. I'll have these gone very, very soon. Probably in about an hour. Iliacus is gone. Iliopsoas is gone. Okay. And Risorius is gone. Okay. And phrenic nerve can go too. Diaphragm is innervated functions because of the phrenic nerve. But that's really a term that was put in there by the physiologists. We had a physiologist that taught anatomy for a semester or two, and they slipped some terms in, and they're really physiology terms. They're not hard at all, but just one more thing we don't need. So where it says in parentheses, innervated by phrenic nerve, the diaphragm at the bottom, it's just going to say diaphragm. Okay.
Charlie, can you go over synergist and antagonist again?
Right. Because I was started to say that. When you get asked for a synergist or an antagonist, just calm down. It's not hard. First off, there's going to be 5 muscles to choose from. What you got to find is one of the 5 that either does the same as the starting one that you're given, or the opposite. Okay. For instance, the easy one I always pick, the biceps brachii, give me an antagonist. That's a muscle that works in the opposite direction. Okay, and that would be triceps when you see it on the sheet. Okay, if I asked for biceps brachii for you to give me a synergist, that would be one that helps. Not maybe all the time, but at least some of the time helps do the same function, doubles up, teams up. You know, sometimes you need help to do anything, and you need help to lift something in real life. So I think of the biceps brachii, and I think of the brachialis. Always the brachialis helps the biceps. So a synergist, uh, at least sometimes, works with another muscle, and those two are synergistic. When 2 muscles work opposite each other, they are antagonistic or antagonists. Okay. For instance, palmaris longus and extensor digitorum communis. They're antagonists. One extends the fingers, one makes a fist. Just the opposite. Okay?
Thank you.
Well, that doesn't say okay.
Yeah, I understand now. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if anybody doesn't understand something or has a question in the next couple of days, just shoot me an email and we'll work on it from there. Okay. But I just wanted to take a look at this page to be sure. Some things do come from here. The list of rotator cuff muscles is right there, so that's good. Okay. Okay. Well, I don't know if I have anything more I can share. I can certainly answer any questions or give it a shot anyway. But
I don't have any questions so far. If I do, I'll email you tomorrow.
okay, that's fine.
Thank you. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
Well, mind then if I end the session, and if anybody has any questions, email me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.